What if Ubers was tiered like a regular tier? In OU, if a Pokemon gets above 4.53% usage, it can move up to OU. What if the same thing happened in Ubers? What if Pokemon could move up and down based on its usage stats in Ubers? Well, let's find out. For simplicity, I'm going to be using last month's usage stats and not the weighted usage stats because they are mostly the same anyway, and we're just going to take a look and see how would the tier change if Ubers was a regular tier. So the first one we notice is Slurpus. Slurpus has a very high usage in Ubers because of its hyper-offensive lead capabilities. It can set sticky webs, it can endeavor. It's a really popular hyper-offensive lead, and even though it's never used in OU, it would become an Ubers Pokemon. So in this case, OU would not lose that much, but potentially lower tiers would be pretty annoyed that Slurpus is getting used in the Ubers tier this much. Then we look at Ferrothorn. If Ferrothorn was Ubers, OU would take a huge blow, because Ferrothorn is actually one of OU's most popular Pokemon. It's a really good spiker, has good utility in spikes, Thunder Wave. In fact, that utility is what makes it popular in Ubers too, because in Ubers it can check Pokemon like Kyogre. So OU losing Ferrothorn would be a really big deal, and its utility in Ubers and OU is basically the same. It's overall a very good defensive Pokemon. Ditto is used a lot in Ubers because it can copy a lot of high power sweepers, and it's really good for scouting out, but in OU you don't see Ditto a lot. Ditto has much more utility in Ubers where there are a lot of scary sweepers moving around. So OU would not really care about losing Ditto. It's a niche option on some stall teams in OU, but typically Ditto going away would not be a big deal for the OU tier. Now we move on to Shuckle. Shuckle would not be a big deal as well. It's a pretty good hyper-offensive lead in OU, and similarly in Ubers, but OU losing Shuckle would not be a big deal. People will just find other hazard users to use, like Galvantula, for example. So again, this is a similar case to Slurpuff, where it's slightly annoying, but you have a lot of options, so it's not a big deal if OU loses Shuckle. Blissey is interesting. Blissey is used in Ubers, obviously, but the reason why it's so good is because of heavy-duty boots. But you can probably easily replace Blissey with Chansey and have similar results. So in OU, if Blissey would be gone, you would see similar results, similar team structures, but with Chansey instead of Blissey. It's overall not a really big deal. And then we move on to Cloister, and Cloister is again something similar to Ditto and Slurpuff in that it's not used that often in OU, but it's used in Ubers. So OU would not really be affected by losing Cloister. Maybe some lower tiers would be, but again, it's not really a big deal. So the only big deal would be losing Ferrothorn. But what's really is going to be a big deal is, what if we look at all the Ubers Pokemon that would drop to OU if we did usage? The usage benchmark is 4.53. So anything below 4.53 would become an OU Pokemon. So if we look here, Lugia, Mewtwo, Dialga, Giratina, Kyurem, Lunala, Reshiram, we go to Solgaleo, Zamazenta, Negrozma, Dawnwings. If we look at all these Pokemon and how they would how they would fare in OU, well, to be frank, all of them would be banned, right? But it's still interesting to see how they would fare in OU. Lugia would be the tier's almost best wall because of how bulky it is and that access to multi-scale or even pressure if you want it. But fundamentally, Lugia is still going to be weak to the same things it's weak to in OU. It'll be weak to Toxic, for example. So it would obviously be broken. You would basically shut down any offensive team because nothing can break this down in OU. But it would be a pretty good bulky Pokemon, but still struggle with the same issues like Toxic. Then we move on to Dialca. Dialga would be the tier's best Stealth Rocker, and even though it's a Steel type, Landorus can't do anything to it because at high special attack, you can throw off any attack you want. You can even throw off a Blizzard if you really care about specially defensive Lando. But Dialga would be definitely really broken in OU. Then we move on to Giratina. Giratina, obviously, its stats are way too good. Like, the common theme you'll see with all these Ubers to OU Pokemon is that their stats will just make them way too good. But Giratina falls into a similar category, and don't even get me started on Kyurem. Kyurem regular form is already causing havoc in the OU tier. Some people want to ban Kyurem in the OU tier. Now you want to add Kyurem White, which has infinitely more power, and still has all the same moves like Ice Beam, it has Earth Power. So Kyurem White would probably be the most broken out of all of these Pokemon because it's just simply way too strong. And if this was an OU, it would be banned, obviously, but it would be incredibly crazy. Then we have something like Lunala. Lunala would be a pretty good sweeper, and again, it would be broken, but a really good bulky sweeper. It is weak to knockoff, however, but being weak to knockoff didn't stop Spectrier, for example, from getting banned from OU. So it'll again be a very interesting Pokemon to use. A lot of good coverage options. Moongeist Beam, for example, Moonblast, Psychic, really good options right now. And then we look at Reshiram. Reshiram looks like the most normal out of all these Pokemon, but even then, that special attack with 150 can run heavy-duty boots as well. Good attack like Blue Flare, which is high power. Draco Meteor 2 as well. Really tough to switch into. And with heavy-duty boots and Roost, it's actually going to be really difficult to even beat. Then we have Pokemon like Solgaleo and Zamazenta, which are both really strong on their own. And they're just really strong physical attackers. Barely anything can check them. Maybe Toxapex, the Slowbro could have a chance, but really nothing doing, essentially. Then Necrozma Dawnwings is really interesting because if you look at the Uber's tier, Necrozma Dawnwings is 0.4. Less than even Whimsicott, less than Pukumuku, less than Mew. It's really bad in Ubers, and one of the main reasons it's bad in Ubers is because you can't use more than one Necrozma form on the same team. So if you use Necrozma Dawnwings, you cannot use Necrozma Duskmane, which is on every team, right? That's one of the reasons. And the second reason is that it's outclassed by Lunala, essentially, right? It's outclassed by Lunala. So in OU, you wouldn't have that issue of competition for the Necrozma spot, but you would still have the issue of being compared to Lunala. So even though it has really good stats, it would probably not even see usage in OU because it would be outclassed by Lunala. And the funny thing is Necrozma Dawnwings might even go to UU if you allow Lunala in OU. And that's basically what would happen if Ubers was tiered like a regular tier. You would see Slurpuff in OU, and you would see potentially even Necrozma Dawnwings in UU, potentially, if things work out that way. So just a fun little Theorymon video, nothing really substantial. It's mainly for just joking around and seeing the what-if situation, right? Because it would be pretty funny to imagine a tier with Slurpuff and Ubers because of its usage, and seeing stuff like Lugia in OU, or Necrozma in UU, or Zamazenta in OU. Just a fun little video, and let me know if you want to see more of these Theorymon style videos. They're not really based too much in competitive, it's just more like a fun, whimsical thing to look at. So let me know if you do like this type of content. We can do something like, for example, Theorymon Thursday, if you guys are really interested in that type of stuff. But anyways, as usual, make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.